PodcastCoug Season 7, Episode 6.
You're listening to the PodcastCoug Radio Network with your host, James Laurie. The PodcastCoug is your weekly Coug On Demand show featuring all things Cougs and Washington State Cougar football. And now, here is your host, PodcastCoug.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the PodcastCoug. I am James Laurie, the PodcastCoug, and you are listening to the PodcastCoug, where we're all things Cougar football, 30 minutes of Coug talk, and we've witnessed a decent and respectable win over Cal last Saturday, and you're going to hear a very rare prediction against USC on Saturday as we're talking Trojan football. Welcome back, everybody. It is Episode 6, Season 7, and we've got Cal last week, 28-9, right? The best takeaway is that we showed that we were clearly the better team, right? That was just, obviously, we were the better team. In fact, I think Cal is on a downhill slope, right? We didn't win because we made some goal line stops, or benefited from bad calls, right? We were better offensively, defensively, and controlled the game, right? Despite 2 bad interceptions and not forcing Cal into a single turnover. So we've also contained maybe the top running back in the conference, 70 yards, right? I mean, that was just amazing that we stopped their running back, right? And Cam Ward, looked good these past two weeks, right? He's getting a little better. We talked about last week. We talked about the lateral passes, never really focusing on the straight down in the middle of those long bombs. But his decision making isn't always great, but you know what? He's making some easy reads, harder and harder, and he needs to get he needs that calm and confidence under center. He's got that Patrick Mahomes like qualities, right? I mean, again, those 2 interceptions against Cal, they were pretty bad. They were bad, and the last one especially, right? It occurred on first down, when we had first down, where Cam just could have ran the 10 yards in for the touchdown. And see that these are concerns, right? He's learning, right? Several concerns, but despite the impressive performance against Cal, our defense just isn't 100%, right? I mean, I think they did a nice job. I mean, not bad. They're not bad, right? But the effort and the tackling are good. But I think the wide open offenses that give us, we've got problems on some wide open, offenses, and our running game isn't going anywhere. I like Jenkins a lot, but Watson and Jenkins just aren't getting it done. You either have it or you don't, and we don't have a running game. And it's difficult. It's painful when it's 3rd and long and we run the ball. Right? Really? Come on. I think that Cam could find better holes at times. Cam needs to be coached on his, his Houdini, on the run option, regarding Cal. No doubt. I think that Wilcox, is in the hot seat. Right. And their fans have seen enough for 6 years. Right. And so, last week we got, saw Paul Christ go and Carl Dorrell go. We got, obviously Wisconsin and Colorado, they're gone. Same old. And there's a dumpster fire in Berkeley. No question about it. No doubt. And, honestly, minus Ott, they are not that good. We did not play a very good Cal game. We didn't beat a very good Cal team. Now, we contained Jaden Ott. He's their only offense, really. I mean, they got a good quarterback, but speaking about Ott, it's amazing that we stopped him, and he hadn't faced anybody like us before. Okay, he's a freshman, he was scared. I mean, we just literally just shut him down, and it showed it. And our guys just were stepping up, right? I mean, we just stopped the run. And, I thought, he would just tear it up, 120 yards or something. I mean, but we just stopped it. And, you could hear, so that, I think that's very interesting. I think it's great. We still got a lot of work to do, a little bit on the defensive side. And of course, Cam Ward is getting a little bit better as we go along. Those 2 picks, those were painful, but we really didn't beat a really good Cal team. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is Wilcox's last year. It's unfortunate, that Christ and And Dorrell got fired in the middle of the season, but that's what college football is today. And speaking about the season, you're going to hear a very rare prediction from the Podcast Coug. Now, I don't go on message boards, which I live all the time on Wazoo Watch. I don't make predictions, right? Nobody knows the future, right? We don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. Sure, it can be fun. It's like preseason. Everybody thinks, it really isn't until week 6, 7 for the rankings, right? Where we really know where everything is settling in. But nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody knows who's going to show up. Nobody knows who's not going to show up. And we just don't know, right? And I rarely make a prediction. Well, I'm making a prediction today, and we're talking about University of Southern California, the Trojans in the Coliseum, and that's coming here next, right here on the second half of the Podcast Coug.
Hey, Coug fans. You're podcasting with James Laurie and the PodcastCoug Radio Network. The Podcast Coug is your weekly Coug on Demand show, featuring all things Cougar football in Washington State. To help you get through the week, hit the subscribe button or check us out on iTunes, the App Store, iOS, Google Play, Stitcher, or at PodcastCoug.com.
The real estate agent you work with matters, and a great agent helps you own the home of your dreams. And your dreams come true with James Laurie at Coldwell Banker Bain, representing clients like you 24/7, from condos to colonials and everything in between. If you're selling, buying, need a price analysis, or just a contractor referral, ask James, winner of the 2015 through 2019 International Coldwell Banker Diamond Award, with dozens and dozens of 5-star Zillow reviews and Seattle Magazine's 5-star award winner for 2018 through 2020. James Laurie, Coldwell Banker Bain, at 425-466-3672 or jameslaurie.net. Rock solid results.
You're listening to the Podcast Coug.
Two running backs in with the quarterback. Signals called. All man in motion going through to the right side. Handoff. Wings out to the right side. Touchdown, Washington State.
You are listening to the Podcast Coug.
Welcome back to the second half of the Podcast Coug. I am James Laurie, the Podcast Coug, where we're all things Cougar football, all things Cougs. It's Washington State at USC. Big Fox national television Saturday, 4:30, Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, right? Cougs are 4-1. Of course, USC 5-0. Third time on Big Fox this year. It was Wisconsin and the Oregon games, both on Big Fox. The Trojans opening at 14-point favorite. And, this is going to be the final time Washington State plays in the Coliseum as a conference game against the Trojans, and it might be the final conference game between the two. Just unless we meet at the Pac-12 championship, this is it. And I'm happy, right? This is it, right? So, Trojans are scheduled to bail out of the Pac-12. We all know that in 2024, and we're not scheduled to play them next year. So it's unlikely SC will ever make a trip back to Pullman again for a non-con in the future. It's just not clear, right? But I think this could be the last time we're playing the Trojans in a long, long time. And it's kind of a sad situation, but it's bittersweet. I'm kind of happy for it. But in a way, it's kind of sad. Now, of course, we won't really be missing our trips to the Coliseum. We've just got, we have just 6 times down there in LA. We beat them 6 times in 100 and some years. So those wins have been very memorable. Last time the Cougs won, by the way, in the Coliseum, it was actually 100% of our defense that scored only 1 touchdown. DeMonte Horton, a pick 6, 2013. Cougs upset Trojans 10-7 with Leach. I remember actually seeing the game ball in Leach's office in the football operations building. That was cool when I toured his office, and the game ball for the SC game for 2013 was in there. And so, so last week, USC pulled away second half, a 42-25 win over Arizona State last Saturday. They had a second half kind of a surge, but arguably, I think honestly, they have the best quarterback in the Pac-12, Caleb Williams. And he's passed for 348 yards, 3 touchdowns. Their defense, their 5 sacks, shutting down Arizona State last week. After halftime, they just exploded. So Sun Devils were outscored 21-8 and limited to 113 yards in the second half. So they just boat raced. And they have boat raced out of the 5 teams they played this year, 4 out of 5. Now, Oregon State was their only, really competition, right? I mean, it went down to really a go-ahead touchdown with about, a minute remaining to eke out in Corvallis, 17-14. The Beavs were just so close on winning that game, but no, they eke out and they won in Corvallis. Lincoln Riley, can't say enough about this guy. Lincoln Riley, head coach. What's interesting is and this guy is, come on, he's great. He really is. I mean, I think they finally got their act together at SC for a decade of really being non-relevant. Here they are. Lincoln Riley played quarterback for Texas Tech in the early 2000s under Leach, and he was even served as an assistant working on receivers on Leach's Red Raiders staff in 03 and to 09 for like 6 years. And what's also interesting, offensive coordinator Eric Morris played receiver at Texas Tech, also under Riley and Leach in the mid-2000s. So that's interesting. I think it's kind of interesting. We had Grinch. Remember, Alex Grinch was our DC for 3 years. Roy Manning, outside linebackers coach. He coached our edge rushers under Grinch. Dennis Simmons, outside receivers coach, also worked for Leach. And for a couple years. So, boy, I'll tell you, time has flown by. Remember those names? I mean, of course, everybody knows Alex Grinch, but, Roy Manning and Dennis Simmons, those days seem like yesterday. They're all on USC staff. And so here we are. The Trojans are relevant again after lots of coaching changes over this past decade. They are relevant. And here's Lincoln Riley, came from Oklahoma. From off season, I think it was an amazing hire. He's got really good genes, right? A great coach, and so far USC is living the dream. They're ranked number 5 highest ranked team in the Pac-12. USC took advantage of the portal. They grabbed Caleb Williams, that he followed Riley right out of Oklahoma, right? So funny, it's interesting. Cam Ward followed Eric Morris out of Incarnate Word, and Caleb Williams, quarterback, followed Lincoln Riley out of Oklahoma. That is really interesting. So that's crazy, right? Caleb is one of the nation's most efficient quarterbacks. 1,400 yards, 12 touchdowns, one interception of the season, 67% completion rate. So he threw his first pick last week against Arizona State. So we need to, obviously our best game. We need some favor from the football gods, right? With the stars need to line up this Saturday in the Coliseum, right, for a miracle on Saturday. And, again, I think Caleb is the best quarterback in the Pac-12. I think number 2 would be Penix from Washington. And, he's just a great quarterback, right? And they've got 3 of the best receivers in the country. Right. And they've also got some of the best offensive line. Their offensive line is one of the best in the country. And they have a first team all conference tailback. So they are just loaded up as usual. They're just loaded. And, one turnover this season, that's amazing. That's crazy. And so the Cougs have forced 7 turnovers. We had 29 last year. 29 turnovers last year. We've got 7 already. Cougs need to find a way to get not 1, but 3 turnovers against Southern Cal. 3. We need 3 turnovers, right? And that will be a huge difference in the game, right? USC is tied for first in the nation with 15 turnovers. They rank 5th with 19 sacks. So, our passing game is actually improving. Ward is getting a little better. Against they're going to be playing against a very good USC defense. Our offense have been sharp. They're really good in the red zone, right? We're scoring 95% in the red zone, so that's good. 31 players are from Southern Cal. right? It's 31. 5 are from L.A., right in their hometown. And Renard Bell, we'll get 3 of them, Renard Bell, Deion Henley, and Jordan Lee. But Renard Bell's parents, their friends, their parents' home 5 minutes from the Coliseum. Renard Bell grew up 5 minutes. And so there, of course, he's got a lot of tickets out there with friends showing up. Renard was not a USC fan growing up, 5 minutes away. He was not a Trojan fan at all. He was an LSU guy and also a New Orleans Saint guy. So I think his dad was the same, right? So he didn't really like the Trojans, even though they were just right next door. So, okay, here we go. This is a short version, by the way, of the podcast Coug. But here we go. This is time for my rare prediction. Rare. I never give predictions, like I said in the first half. Nobody knows the future. We really don't. And you can guess all day long, and 99% of the people are wrong all the time, unless it's like just a cupcake, right? That's easy, right? So playing a cupcake, right? FCS. So here we go. I'm expecting a major, miraculous upset on Saturday in the Coliseum on national television. Okay? Call me crazy. It's we rarely win down there, right? And there's probably a 4% chance of winning. But I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen on Saturday. I really do. Cougs win and shock the world. Hey, that's it for episode 6 of the 7th season of the Podcast Coug. Thanks for listening. It's Washington State at Southern Cal. God bless and go Cougs.
You've been listening to the Podcast Coug with your host, James Laurie. The Podcast Coug is your weekly Coug on Demand show featuring all things Cougs and Washington State Cougar football. This has been a presentation of the Podcast Coug Radio Network. Find us at podcastcoug.com.